friends. Okay, so I'm going to go over workout day 3. I'm going to give a little bit more in depth of an explanation for both of our first 2 movements because they're very difficult. They have a lot of components, but they are arguably some of the best movements you can do for your lower body. So the first one we're going to talk about is the deadlift. So the deadlift is probably top 3 best exercise movements you can do if executed properly. There is also a lot of room for injury, not so much with the lighter weights, although that's definitely a possibility, but more when you start to deadlift with really heavy weights. So the more you can learn to deadlift with lighter weights, the better you're going to be when it comes to the heavier weights. So I'm going to do this with a kettlebell, but you can also do it with a dumbbell. Maybe like this dumbbell, I would have it standing up and I would grab the top of it. And then I'll show you an option called a Romanian deadlift, which is a little bit different than a standard deadlift. And I'll show you that after I work through all of the components of your regular deadlift. So I'm going to start from the bottom and move to the top. This is actually a full body exercise. It works, can't think of the word. It works your whole posterior chain. So everything on your backside is working. You're engaging everything. A lot of people think of this as maybe an upper body movement where you're pulling, or maybe just a lower body movement where you're squeezing your glutes, but it's everything. All of your muscles come together to really make this movement. So we start, first main component of a deadlift is a hip hinge. So you're hinging at your hips, pushing your hips back. So if you're thinking about like a little teapot, this is what you're doing. So what you see some people do with a deadlift is really bend into their knees and then pick it up. But you want to really just shoot your hips back. Your weight is in your heels. Sometimes I even pick up my toes. And your knees are slightly bent, but not because you're bending into your knees. Your knees are really only bent because your hips are shooting back. So your knees don't really need to bend all that much. So you're going to start with your hip hinge. You should feel your hamstrings lengthening. You should feel your glutes firing up. You should feel your weight in the back of your heels. Then, as you are pulling the weight up, you're also simultaneously pushing your feet through the floor. So I like to really visualize that my feet are pushing away from the floor as I lift the weight. So by pushing your feet into the floor while simultaneously engaging your hamstrings and engaging your glutes, you take a lot of the work out of your lower back. Versus if you don't engage your feet, your hamstrings, and your glutes, it's really just your lower back now pulling this weight up. So get that lower body involved because really deadlifts are a lower body exercise. You shouldn't feel too much in your lower back. Now we'll work up. So you'll see that my chest is forward and my shoulders are pulled back. I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together rather than rounding to grab this. When you start to round, when you come up, all of that pressure is in your lower back and you're risking spine injury. So really roll your shoulders back and then you're going to engage your lats. Your lats are these muscles right here. So you roll your shoulders back, engage those lats, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Push through the floor, engage your quads and your glutes, pull it up. Now, another thing you'll see a lot with deadlifts is people squeezing their butts to the top. That is not necessary. It does not add to the exercise. It does not give your glutes an extra squeeze. If anything, it kind of just puts your lower back at risk because now you're leaning back and squeezing your butt forward. There's no need to do that. Actually, it's a little bit better to keep the engagement in your glutes and your hamstrings when you pull it up to kind of come until you're just barely hinged back and then bring it back down. You can lock out at the top, but don't push your glutes forward. Just lock out your legs, squeeze your shoulder blades together, and try to make sure that you keep your traps down away from your ears. So really push your shoulders down away from your ears because you're going to feel your traps working, and then you're going to end up with big traps like me, which might be good for the gentleman out there. So again, I like to start this way. Hands in front of shoulders. I hinge my hips back. As I bend forward, I am leaning back into the heels, and this weight keeps me from falling backwards. My spine is straight. You can drop your butt a little bit. Your butt doesn't need to be at shoulder height. You can drop your butt a little bit, engage your lats, chest is forward, and you squeeze your butt, drive through your feet to lift, and then drop it back down. So it's a very long explanation for a deadlift, but this is a very important movement. It's a very critical movement to get down. So the option, if you want to start with something a little bit easier, then we can start with what's called a Romanian deadlift or an RDL. An RDL is when you deadlift, but you start at the top, and you take the weights about an inch or two below your knees. Then you come on back up. So you don't drop it all the way down to the floor, but it's a really good way to practice it to feel the engagement in your hamstrings and your glutes without necessarily risking your lower back. So you can start with that RDL, Romanian deadlift, or if you're a little bit more advanced and you want to start with your deadlifts, you can do it that way. So the second movement I'm going to show you is called a Bulgarian split squat. Again, this is a really difficult movement. It's really difficult for even me, even without weights. So Bulgarian split squat, you will do with a chair. I'm going to show you steps to work up. You don't have to start on the chair. You can start on a block. I'll show you all that. So a Bulgarian split squat, you start with your back leg on a chair. I like to have the top of my foot on a chair. Some people like to have their toes on the chair, but I find that it makes my back quad work a little bit more. It's up to you, but I tend to find that when I have the top of my foot on the chair, my standing glute gets a little bit more of that work. So you want to have your front foot, you can scoot it out a little bit, you want to have it in front of you so it's not directly under your hip. So one mistake that I see a lot with Bulgarian split squats is people making a straight line down to the floor. So you'll see my knee kind of stays in a straight line. That is a no-no because you'll see my front knee is reaching over my toe, which I guess is fine if you want to work your quads, but a Bulgarian split squat is supposed to work your booty. So to do that, you want your back knee to actually make a little half circle or crescent towards the bottom legs of the chair. So you'll see my knee starts and then it makes a little crescent towards the bottom of the chair. You'll see my front knee is above my front heel and I'm pushing through that front heel to make my glutes work. Play around with this a little bit. See what positioning helps you. You might not want to take as big of a step. Maybe a smaller step works for you. Woo. Just make sure you're feeling it in that front glute. I also find if I lean forward a little bit, bring my belly to my thigh, that helps me feel it more in my glute as well. You'll hear people tell you not to lean forward on things like lunges, but that's a myth because the more you lean forward and bring your belly to your thigh, the more you'll feel it in your glutes. And that's actually how I was able to learn how to feel my glutes. So that's hard. You can always hold a weight at your chest, hold weights at your shoulders, hold weights on the outsides of your standing leg. Maybe you hold a kettlebell on the inside of your standing leg. However you want to do it, you can do that. So modification is to do a back foot raised split squat. On this one, you will need to have the ball of your foot on the block, on the stepper, on the whatever it is that you have that's not as tall as this chair. Take a nice big step between both feet, and again, you're going to squat low. Now, the crescent moon shape with your knee doesn't necessarily apply to this one. This one, you're just trying to go down and up and try to keep that front knee over that front heel so that you feel that activation in your glutes. Even further modification is to do a regular split squat. Your back heel is high. Again, you're driving through your front heel, and you're just tapping that back knee on the floor. Again, use one weight on the inside of your front leg You can use 2 weights in both hands. You can use weights on your shoulders. Another cool thing to do if you only have resistance bands is to put a resistance band under your front foot, and you lunge down and pull that resistance band. So, those are your 2 movements. Again, very long explanations, but both of them are difficult, and there's ways to work up to both of them, and I want to give you all of those tools and all of those options. So now we're going to go into our arms, bicep curls and tricep dips. Bicep curls, you can use hand weights. Say you only have 3-pound hand weights at home. 3 pounds isn't a lot for a bicep curl. It might be for some people, but for most of us, it's not going to be a lot for bicep curls. So if you have 3-pound weights, just put both of the 3-pound weights in one hand, do one side, and then switch to do the other side. If you have 8 to 12-pound weights, you can do both at the same time. Another option is to use a duffel bag or a backpack. If you want to use one arm at a time, you can do that. So some things with bicep curls, I'll show you without the weights, but you can do 3 different ways. Your palms facing in to each other, this is called a hammer curl. Your palms facing forward, this is a regular bicep curl. And then you can do a lateral bicep curl. These actually, I feel, work my biceps more. It's all up to you. It's whatever you feel like doing. Maybe you switch every time. They all work the biceps. One big thing you want to focus on when doing a bicep curl is squeezing your elbows into your side, and don't let the elbows move. Take it really slow and controlled. So you'll see sometimes people start, swinging it up like this. When you start doing that, now your shoulders are working and your biceps are no longer involved in this exercise. So the more slow and controlled you take it, whether it's out to the side, whether it's in front of you, without that swinging motion, the more your biceps are going to work, and you're going to take your shoulders out of the equation. Your shoulders are always working during a bicep curl, but especially when you start swinging those weights. So again, keep it nice and controlled. Another really good way, if you don't have very heavy weights for bicep curls, is to lower down until your arms want to straighten and then come back up, because you're going to keep that bicep muscle under tension rather than when you straighten your arm, now you're resting. Either way, try it out, see what burns the most. And another cool option that I like, again, if you only have a resistance band, have one arm hold the resistance band down, squeeze your elbow in, and curl it up. Curl. Or place the band around your wrists and curl while you're pulling the band apart. Yeah. Cool. That is bicep curls. Then you'll go straight into your tricep dips. You can do this on a chair or you can do it on the floor. I'll show you chair first, and then floor is easier. If you are doing this on a chair, you keep your hips close to the chair and your elbows go back. So your hips are basically grazing the chair. If you go out a little bit more, it doesn't really do as much for your triceps. A little bit harder, straighten the legs, or maybe do one leg and then do the other leg. Those are your options on the chair. On the floor, your fingertips face forward towards your feet. You lift your hips up and you bend your elbows. Not dipping your hips, because that doesn't give your triceps as much of a workout. You try to keep your hips high and then just dip right here. All right, and then we're going to go into abs, which is double leg stretch. So a double leg stretch is it's a Pilates movement. So people who don't do Pilates might refer to this as something else, but I'm also a Pilates instructor, so we're going to call it a double leg stretch. So double leg stretch, you keep your knees above your hips. Make sure to keep your knees above your hips rather than pulling them into your chest, because this keeps your abs activated. This stops your abs from working. So keep your knees over your hips, hands are outside of the shins. You crunch in, your shoulders are up. As you inhale, you extend your arms back and your legs back. and you exhale to bring it in. A modification is to drop your head and shoulders as you extend. That's a little easier. And then crunch it in. Then we're going to do heel taps. So you place your heels by your glutes, arms come up, and then you just crunch side to side. Your shoulders are off the floor, and then you're crunching into those obliques. So now we're going to go into our booty / core finishers exercise. We're going to do frog pumps. Frog pumps are very much like the glute bridge that we do with our back on the floor when you push your hips to the sky, but we're going to do it with our heels together and our knees wide. Now, depending on your ankle mobility, there's two ways to do this. You can do it with the bottoms of your feet together. If that's not comfortable, keep your heels together and just turn your feet out. Keep your knees wide. Everyone's ankle mobility is different. This might feel good for some people and not for others. So again, play around with it. You're going to bring your heels not quite up to your glutes, but about 6 inches away from your glutes. And then just push through your heels. Keep your knees wide. Make sure your lower back hits the mat every time. So if you arch your back like this, and then you try to push your hips up, you're going to feel your hip flexors and your lower back working. If you take the arch out of your back and shoot your tailbone towards your toes, that's where your glutes are going to work. Then you're going to end with a pulse. And then we're going to go into our side booty exercise. So you'll flip over to all fours. Take your leg back, heel to the sky. As you crunch, you rotate your foot so the side of your foot is to the sky. Heel to the sky, toes down. Side of the foot, toes to the side. And then you'll do it on the other side. And then we're going to hold side plank. Again, the higher your shoulders are above your hips, the easier this is. So this would be the easiest. You can put one foot in front of the other, or you can stack your feet. Second easiest, or actually hardest, is going to be your forearm on the floor. Make sure your elbow is under your shoulder, one foot in front of the other. Harder is feet stacked. Try to hold it for 30 seconds if you can. Start where it's challenging. If challenging for you is 20 seconds, start with 20 seconds and then add 10 seconds. If challenging for you is 1 minute, hold it for 1 minute and then add 10 seconds. You know what your level is, so you really want to start where it's challenging enough for you and then add 10 seconds each round. So ideally, over these 4 weeks, if you were someone who was comfortable holding it for a minute, maybe you get yourself up to 3 minutes by the end of the 4 weeks. Really challenge yourself and push it. Again, the stronger we get our core, the better it's going to help those deadlifts, the better it's going to help our squats. It helps everything. Our core is the main part of all of our exercises. So really work on that, really challenge yourself on these plank holds. All right, that's day 3.